Okay.
You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch 8 to 10 a.m. Wednesday through Sunday. You can see our Facebook shows on Mac's Sports Facebook page and Northeast Streaming Sports Network, with our platforms also on Twitter and Instagram. Like, follow, comment, share, subscribe when possible. Check out the website on macandjacksports.com called Mac's Insiders for information on weekly guests, articles, team public relations updates, a list of shows on Northeast Streaming Sports, our great sponsors with links to their products and services. I'm Mac with your co-host Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Mac. We're closing out 2020. A couple of more days to go, a year unlike any other.
Yes, sir. I mean, I'm happy to see this year go, Jack. I don't know about anybody else, but, man, I can't wait for this year to be over. Hopefully, we end up having a better year and everything goes back somewhat to normal. Scheduled on today's show, Jack, we have the Philly sports guy, Jamie Paggs. Now, he was in Irving, Texas at the Dallas Eagle game. He did a show live from there. I don't know if he'll be in today because of, traveling back and forth to Dallas. I'm hoping he shows up and is in our show because he's a great guest. He covers Philly sports like nobody else, and we'll be happy to get him on today.
You're trying to talk nice, Mac.
Yes,
because of travel. The darn game was Sunday. It's Wednesday. The man's had a hangover after that Eagle loss. I mean, he's still depressed, and he's got to get out of his funk. It's not travel. He's had 3 days. Come on. From Dallas to Philly.
Yeah.
He's not taking a boat going back, Mac. Come on.
A slow boat from Texas, Jack.
Yeah, he's a little depressed. The Eagles got eliminated. I mean,
yes, they did.
They're the only team in the NFC East who's out of it now.
That's very true.
Yeah.
An announcement for all of you that follow us and view us and listen to us. We are a part of a new network coming out. It's called Northeast Streaming Sports, where us and a lot of our friends that do the same podcasts and broadcasts are getting together, and we'll be out there on one page together. So you'll be able to watch all the shows in one place, which will be pretty cool. So we'll go ahead and that's it for today. We just started that today, Jack. So hopefully you all tune in and check us out on Northeast Streaming Sports. And our sports updates, Jack. And this is brought to you by Fanatics. Fanatics is a great store for all your sporting apparel on any sport: football, baseball, basketball, hockey. They have jerseys, hats, and all that good stuff. So check it out. Their link is on our website at macandjacksports.com. You can go right there, click on it, brings you right to the store, and go ahead and pick up some gifts, man. Buy something for that special someone for their birthday, or just treat yourself. So the NHL, Jack, announces a triple header televised next month when you have the Penguins at the Flyers. You got Chicago at Tampa and St. Louis at Colorado, Jack. So they're going to start off the year with a bang. Lightning will be, of course, showing off their championship trophy, maybe a banner. And so hockey's going to start next month with that big triple header, Jack.
I mean, no different from the NBA on Christmas Day having 4 games back to back to back to back. What the NHL needs to do is market particular players as superstars who people are going to want to tune in to see, because that's what the NBA does. You see their 4 games on their schedule that day, you immediately look at the teams and you think, which player do you want to see play? And that's how people tune in. And that's what the NHL has to start doing. They really have to start marketing their superstars better.
I agree, because they do have a very loyal following, Jack. But to spread out there and get new fans and maybe other people watching, I agree with you 100%. That's something the NBA does really well. The NFL does really well. MLB is a little bit behind too, I think. I think it's more of a local, regional fan bases that tune in. So with hockey and baseball, it's a little more difficult because, if you're an Islander fan, you're not really a Bruin fan. In football, a lot of people just love football, and for a lot of different reasons. And I think it's the same thing with the NBA. If you like the NBA, even though you have a favorite team, you follow LeBron James. If you like football, even if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, say, you'll watch Patrick Mahomes. And I think they made a conscious effort, the NFL and NBA, to do this, to open up to more people nationwide. And you're right. I think the NHL and the MLB, Major League Baseball, should start following that kind of example, Jack.
Well, especially with Major League Baseball, you have the best player in the game, Mike Trout, who plays for the Angels out on the West Coast, and they're rarely on national television. I mean, the Angels haven't had too good of a team in recent years, but Mike Trout should really be getting a lot more exposure, and he doesn't. And baseball's a slower paced game. You got to keep that in mind. So let's say you have a game in the week. Mike Trout gets up. You could turn off your TV set and come back 40 minutes late and then see him come up again for his next at bat. But in basketball, it's nonstop up and down the court. Like in hockey, you're up and down the ice the whole time. But people like marquee matchups. I mean, you take the Super Bowl. If the Chiefs and the Packers get there, it's going to be more than just the game itself, more than just the teams itself. It's going to be Mahomes against Rodgers. That's how people are going to look at it. And that's going to be mouth-watering. And people are going to want to tune in for that. And that elevates the whole sport.
I think fantasy has something to do with that too, Jack. I mean, fantasy football is huge, where a lot of people that aren't real football fans, they play that, DraftKings, you have where you can actually gamble on it. And there's a lot of gambling in football anyway. But, these fantasy football leagues, I think they might be over now. We'll talk to Anthony Servino about that when he's on Sunday. I'm not a big fantasy football guy. I play for fun, but I'm not really into it like a lot of people are. And it's a lot bigger than, fantasy baseball or fantasy basketball, which they do have leagues for that. So I think fantasy football has a lot to do with the NFL popularity too, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. And you can have more fun with the statistics in football than you can in a sport like hockey. Because hockey, you're basically measuring just in goals, assists. And in football, you could have total yardage. There's so many variables you could have in fantasy and football that you can't have in other sports.
And speaking of hockey, we'll have our latest Wall of Fame inductee, and he's from the history of hockey, and I think you all will love that. Dwayne Haskins says it's the worst week of his life after Washington releases him, and he apologizes to the team for letting them down, Jack. Does Dwayne Haskins have a future in the NFL? I mean, that's a big question to me. I mean, not only hasn't he played really well, but that off-field stuff where he was, having strippers over at a stripping club. I'm not sure exactly what happened, whether it was a strip club or was a personal party with strippers. And, he's not wearing a mask and, has a chance to spread the COVID to his team members. Do you think he has a chance at making another start or at least getting on another team?
Well, I won't say a starter. Yes, some other team will pick him up. Look, a couple of years ago, he was drafted number 15 overall in the first round. He can catch on with another team as long as he has a good attitude and there are not any problems. But when I say catch on with another team, not as a starter, if that's ever going to eventually come, he's going to have to work himself back into that position. But it's not going to be an easy road back. If
Yeah.
he's working hard, shows a good attitude, you can't tell me he can't be a third string quarterback on some team. But for someone who had all these dreams about being a big star in the league, that's a humbling experience having to fight hard just to get a backup role. But if he does something like he did before with the Redskins, with another team, he's going to follow the path of Johnny Manziel and
Yes.
basically be out of the league. Not, it won't take long for him to, for his NFL career then to be finished. Because what teams don't want is a distraction. They'll put up with a distraction if it's a Deshaun Watson. That other day with the Texans, they went to a restaurant. He brought along some of his teammates. Supposedly, they didn't have the masks on. I could guarantee you if Deshaun Watson was the third string quarterback for the Texans, chances are he would have been released. But because he's a star in the league, they'll just tell Deshaun Watson, Deshaun, we can't have you do that. Just have a talk with them and then move on. But Dwayne Haskins can't get away with that.
I agree. I mean, listen, he only had really 1 year in college, Jack. He's really, really green. I mean, and then he comes in and because the owner wanted to draft this guy, there was the on field where the owner actually pulled Haskins out of the game when he got hurt against the Giants, and didn't even let the head coach know, which was totally ridiculous. And Haskins really wanted them to keep. The owner really wanted them to keep Haskins. And with Rivera there, Rivera don't play games, Shaq. Rivera's been in the league too long. He's a matter of fact coach. He wants to win. And it doesn't matter what the cost is, and he wants his team to have a certain level of excellence and professionalism. And Haskins, I think, being so young and immature and only having that 1 year in college, I think there was a problem just when Rivera took over, Jeff.
Well, he wasn't Rivera's guy. If you remember, Rivera brought Kyle Allen who he coached at the Carolina Panthers over to Washington.
Right.
And he intended for Kyle Allen, he was hoping he would be a starting quarterback, but because so much was invested in Dwayne Haskins being drafted high, it was only Haskins' second year. Ron Rivera wasn't in a position to just name Kyle Allen as the starter. And Alex Smith had gotten injured. He had the horrific injury. So we didn't know how he was going to bounce back. But then
Right.
Kyle Allen gets hurt. And Alex Smith winds up taking over, playing really well. And Dwayne Haskins just wasn't developing to Ron Rivera. As far as Rivera being a no-nonsense guy, just keep this in mind. He cut Dwayne Haskins a couple of weeks after that incident. Dwayne Haskins played the following weekend and played very poorly. Had
Right.
Dwayne Haskins played a great game after that incident, he'd still be on the Washington Redskins moving forward.
I would agree with that. I definitely would.
At least through the last game of the season. To me, it's kind of weak in a way. You cut a guy with only one game to go. But I think I could understand Ron Rivera doing it because he felt maybe Dwayne Haskins would just be a distraction, just the questions about him. He had to kind of move on, he felt.
I definitely agree with that, Jack. I mean, I think a lot had to do with whether he thought Alex Smith could play or not this upcoming week. Maybe they have a feeling that Alex Smith will play. And speaking of quarterbacks, Big Ben is going to rest the last game. I think it's a smart move. The Steelers are in the playoffs. Roethlisberger's been hurt, his leg. I mean, he's older now. I think that's a smart. I normally don't agree with this, Jack. I really don't agree with resting your players. Even when you're in the playoffs. But in this case, I think it's a smart move.
He's going to rest a few more guys as well. He hasn't named them yet, but Mike Tomlin said some of the key players because they don't have a bye, the Steelers. Okay, after this weekend, the playoffs start for them the following week. So it's a logical move, and the Steelers have that novelty. A lot of teams don't have the novelty. They're just battling to get into the playoffs, battling for their position. So it's a smart move by Mike Tomlin. Absolutely.
I definitely agree with that. So don't look now, Jack. I mean, we're all, me and you both are at heart Knicks fans. And of course, they've been dreadful for the past, I don't know how many years, since the days of Patrick Ewing. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks and turned around and beat the Cleveland Cavaliers also. So they're 2-2, 500 probably for the first time in ages, even though it's only 4 games. They look like they're playing good team ball, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come, Jack.
It's nice, but before you get too excited, consider this. Their star player is Julius Randle.
Right.
Julius Randle, just think about some of the good teams in the league, where he would fit in with them. He would be no more than a good complementary piece, maybe a borderline starter. But with the Knicks, he's their star player.
Yeah.
He's standing out. I mean, he gets off to these tremendous starts, the last couple of games. He lights it up and so on. They've got a long way to go, the Knicks. They got a lot of young players. Tom Thibodeau is trying to figure out what's what. Take just with R.J. Barrett, for example.
Yeah.
He hits 9 in a row a couple of games ago and from the 3-point range, and then he misses his next 11 from there. It's kind of being erratic in that sense. We don't know what Toppin, highly touted when they drafted him, loads of potential, but he's already a little hurt, and he just seems a little erratic, but it's a little too early to tell. And we'll see with the Knicks. There are a lot of young pieces, but those young pieces have been there before. Whether Thibodeau could develop them really remains to be seen, but I wouldn't get overly excited when Julius Randle right now is your star player.
Well, Jack, as I said before about the Knicks, I just want to see them start playing team basketball, playing as a team. And, even if they play 500 this year, will be excellent, or make the playoffs.
Well, 500 would. I mean, that's a stretch.
Yeah, it is.
It's a stretch.
I would love to see it. So in other locals, the Philadelphia 76ers are now 3-1. The Nets are 2-2. And the Celtics are 2-2, Jack. The 76ers right now, they didn't play well last game, but they still won, which is the most important thing, of course. And in the Nets and Celtics, as I said, both of those teams and all 3 of those teams should be in the mix at the end of the year for maybe even making it to the championship, Jack.
You can't take the standings that seriously after a few games, Mac. I mean, you really can't. If you have a dreadful team and they're 0-4 at this stage, then it's going to be a long season. But you knew that a few games ago going in. And we know about the general potential that the Sixers, the Celtics have, the Nets have. The Nets rested Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving when they were playing two days in a row. And I can understand Kevin Durant being rested. He had the Achilles thing and so on. But with Kyrie Irving, I don't see why they couldn't be there for some minutes. The Nets lose the overtime game to Memphis. Why wasn't Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving at least suited up? You want to rest them, only play them a few minutes. Let them know at least in the fourth quarter, fourth period, go in the back, loosen up, stretch a little. I might want to use you guys for 2-3 minutes today. Are you okay with that? I'm only using you if the game's on the line at the end. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving supposedly live for those moments. They live for them. And why couldn't they be in uniform, go into the locker room, loosen up, then come running out? And, and you mean to tell me Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving wouldn't welcome getting in the game with 2 minutes to go with the game on the line?
That's a good point.
And they lose in overtime, the Nets. They lose with those 2 guys in street clothes.
I agree. That's a good point. The Bucks made 29 threes, setting a record in 51 attempts, Jack. So that's over half. That beat out the latest record that was 27.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the game has changed, Jack. That low post, get
I
it
was
in.
watching. I was watching that game, and after the Bucks went on the tear, I finally changed the channel. I mean, game was over because Miami didn't have Jimmy Butler.
I hear
Jimmy
you.
Butler got a little hurt, minor injury last game. So Jimmy Butler was sitting it out, and you knew Miami wasn't waging any type of a comeback. You could tell. Interesting, they set a record for 3-pointers made, and their best player, Giannis, doesn't make a 3-pointer. So that was kind of interesting.
Yes, sir. Well, he doesn't get paid to make the threes, Jack. He gets paid to go to drive to the hoop and block. And
Wait, Mac. He's making $45,600,000 a year.
Yes.
Okay, over $45 million a year, and he's not getting paid to do. He's getting paid to do everything with that money. Are you kidding, Mac?
That's not a specialty, Jack.
Are you paid to mop the floors?
Yes.
Are you paid to clean the restrooms?
Of course.
Are you paid to park people's cars?
If I have to, yes.
Are you paid to wash their cars, the windshields, the valet guys, they have to wash the windshield? You get paid enough money, you do it all, and you don't complain, and you do it well.
Yes. Okay, Jack. I got your point.
I mean, come on. Don't tell me Giannis isn't getting paid to do certain things. $45,600,000 a year? Come on.
Jack, our trivia question today. I always love doing trivia questions with you because you're one of the most knowledgeable people I know in sports. And at least half the time you get them right.
I'm knowledgeable until I miss the trivia question. You're
Right.
only as good as your last trivia question, getting it right. If you get it right, you're knowledgeable going into the next show. You get it wrong, you fall back in the pack.
Exactly. So let's try this one. Which NFL team, their name was inspired by a famous writer?
It had to be a long time ago.
Right.
Oh, wow, because we haven't had, long time ago.
Maybe. I'm not going to give you any clues on this one, Jack.
Don, I was going to say, I was thinking of Rocky Mountain High, the Denver Broncos. The singer, I had his name with John.
Backstage, we have the Philly sports guy ready to go, and it looks like he might even have the answer to this.
He might have the answer. Yeah, I think the Philly sports guy, he's coming out of the bullpen. I got knocked out of the game.
You got knocked out. Well,
I got knocked out in the second, third inning.
I am not going to.
Sports guy had to loosen up quick. He's going to have to go a few extra innings.
Yes. So, let me introduce him, Jack.
It was inspired by.
Oh my God, this is going to take forever.
Nah, I'm stumped.
Okay, so let me introduce our guest coming up. The Philly sports guy, Jamie Pags, covers Philly sports like no other. I love having him on every week. He's a great guest, and he's famous on all social platforms. Has thousands of followers. We love having him in all the time. So let me see if I can bring him up here. Let's give him a formal introduction. How you doing today,
John
Pat?
Denver was the singer I thought about with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Rocky Mountain High, but that's a wild guess.
He would go for a great writer.
The answer.
He was a fantastic writer or a well-known writer. But do you want me to answer this question?
Yeah, I missed. I admit, I just don't have it.
How about Edgar Allan Poe, Quoth the Raven Nevermore?
There you go, the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, okay, wow. I was think. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, in fact, their mascots are named Edgar, Allan, and Poe. All three of their mascots. How's that, Jack? So you learn something new every day, Jack.
I thought Edgar Allan Poe was some sports writer from long ago. I wouldn't have thought. Yeah.
There you go. So we're glad to have Pags on, and quickly. We're also part of a new network right now, and Pags will be joining us on their Northeast Streaming Sports, and where we'll be putting all our shows, all the shows that we have that we're friends with are going to come together. We're coming together starting today and forming this network, so all the people out there can watch Pags do his thing and all the other people have. So it's going to be pretty exciting. But without further ado, let's get to some Philly sports. And of course, we got to talk, Pags, about the last game. You were there. You were in Irving, Texas. I loved it. I watched you, and you were in there rooting hard for the Eagles. And it didn't make it happen. There's one thing that stood out in my mind that you said on the last show, Pags, and that was, Wentz is not a scrub, and let's not get too excited about Hurts. And Hurts had a shot, and of course he's a rookie; he's going to make mistakes. But it's only his third game, I think, starting, if I'm right, and he looked like a rookie. Pags.
I agree. It was he came out really strong. It was probably the best first quarter that I've seen the Eagles play in years, and it put a very funny spin on the game, because ultimately, once they started to make adjustments, and some people credit it to Vander Esch from the Cowboys, saying that this could be the last time that he actually plays in Dallas Stadium, and that he riled up his defense, and all of a sudden the defense showed up. And they did a number of things, that some of the adjustments that the Cowboys made on Hurts really put him at a disadvantage. I mean, they definitely tried to make him beat them with his arm, and he wasn't able to do it. And once they realized all we have to do is mirror him on the line of scrimmage and make sure that he doesn't get beyond us. Because once he gets past the line of scrimmage, that's where he becomes most dangerous. But they were able to keep him back on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and at that point was able to really hone him in, and they weren't able to do anything. They really became stagnant after the middle of the second quarter.
I agree.
In the other games, Hurts has shown good judgment throwing the ball away when he had to. But on that one interception where he rolled out to his left, and to just throw it into a crowd like that. I mean, it wasn't a crowd at the time, but he had to know he didn't get much on the ball. And even though you see the receiver open for like a moment, that's when he really showed up. But it's like the rookie that he is, but it's only his third game. So people really have to have patience. I think the expectations were a little higher than they should have been based on the first couple of games.
I agree, and this is where it. So this was the first game the Eagles actually had real fans in the stands, where there was like 30 to 35,000 people there in Texas Stadium. I was one of them, and it's especially once it got into the third quarter, it became quiet when Dallas was on offense. So much so that you could hear me reverberate around the stadium. Like, you could definitely hear me scream, maybe on the broadcast, because you could hear me so loud. But the silence was deafening, and that was a lot to say, because Eagles fans are very passionate fans, and there was enough of them there that they could have made some noise, and they were not doing it. And that was a direct reflection of how the team was playing. And to be honest, if I had to point blame on this game, I blame the entire coaching staff. Not only because of the way that they called the game, both on the offense and the defensive side, but when you saw that Hurts was struggling with 8 minutes left in the game, when they had that interception and they went 3 and out and punted the ball away when they started on their own 30-yard line, that I feel like that the coaching staff missed an opportunity to put Wentz back in. And because you see now everything that was going on, you knew that they had him tied up, and you could have put Wentz back in there again to at least show that you were trying everything that you could to win the division. And they did not do that. They let Hurts go back out there, and he didn't do anything else for the rest of the game. Again, it was like they got a pass interference call that the ball was so underthrown, and Quez Watkins, I know I tout this guy's name all the time. He was blowing past Diggs on a play-by-play basis, and nobody could get him the ball. He was just doing fly routes, and of course he didn't have the arm strength to get him. And that is one of the biggest reasons I felt, that the coaching staff was the biggest to blame for this loss. They are the reason why we lost this game. I feel like that they did not try everything that they could to win this game.
I've been a big proponent of moving quarterbacks in and out. If one quarterback can't get it going, you move the next guy in, kind of the way they do in baseball out of the bullpen. Mac hates it, but I love commentators like Rex Ryan. They're using the term I use, relief pitcher. Brian Flores uses it in Miami. He does it masterfully. But I think it's a little different with the Eagles and the Dolphins, this situation. I think the locker room isn't divided at Miami at all. Everyone buys into Brian Flores. I think Tua and Fitzpatrick have a great relationship, so everyone buys in. You can make it work there. Right now, I get the feeling it's kind of a toxic atmosphere with the Eagle organization, especially with the quarterback situation.
That could very well be. However, when you're trying to win a game, all that has to go out the window. These guys get paid a tremendous amount of money. So they have to, and their goal is to make it to the playoffs. If we were going to see Hurts and we want to watch him evolve, I want to watch him evolve in a playoff game. So the fact that now we are 4-10-1 and finally we are out of the playoffs. We were talking about playoffs.
Yeah.
It's like at 4-9-1. The fact that we still even had an opportunity, and the NFL was dying for that to happen too, because they flexed our game all the way to 8 o'clock on Sunday night, which is again it's such a shame now, because it's realistically that I know that Washington has to win it to win the division, and that's the only game that's a division is in stake, and that's why they flexed it. But ultimately, it's going to put a bad Eagles team back in the national spotlight again, just to watch. And I think that as if Alex Smith plays, Washington will win this game. I don't know.
Well, Jamie, let me cut in here for a second. We got a lot of viewers out there right now. You can post comments to our page. If you got any questions for Pags or any comments to make on the Eagles in the season, you're welcome to comment and onto the show. Well, you mentioned Washington, and you know something, Pags, I got more faith in the Eagles than you do. I think that the Eagles, if their defense plays well as they can, and I've seen them do it, I think if the Eagles run the ball, because Washington is one of the best pass rushing front lines in the league, period. I mean, they're great. They remind me a lot of the San Francisco 49ers before they went to the Super Bowl the year before. But I believe that, I think you still go with I still think you go with Hurts next week, but I would have him on a short leash. If he's having problems in the first quarter, I'm putting Wentz in. I'm doing everything I can to win that last game, because this sets you up for next year, whether you're out of it or not. And a lot of more teams are out than are in. This is the beginning of the next year to me. This is who you're going to keep. This is who you're going to get rid of. These are the big decisions you're going to make in off season. So of course, it's very weird to be friends, the New York Giants being friends with the Eagle fans. They're a great rivalry, but I believe that the Eagles have a shot at Washington. They just got to keep Hurts on a short leash. That's all.
Well, and it was amazing how friendly the Dallas Cowboys fans were as I was leaving Dallas. They were like, "Hey, do great next Sunday. We're rooting for you." And same thing with the Giants fans. The Giants are like, "Hey, we're going to take care of business. You guys got to take care of your side." So it's interesting to hear all of the love that I'm normally not getting, saying, "Hey, you guys, root it on." And the truth of the matter is that we got the 5th pick in the draft right now.
I have a philosophy for next week. People are going to say, well, it really doesn't mean anything for the Eagles players. They couldn't care less about playing spoil. And I kind of agree with that. But this is what's working in the favor of the New York Giants and Dallas Cowboys, who want the Eagles to win. It's a national game. Everyone is that's the spotlight game Sunday night. Everyone is watching around the league and the fans. And I think the Eagle players are going to want to look really good for their peers. Okay? And that's what I think is going to push them to play hard more than anything else.
Well, I hope that you're right. I'm not one to one. I can't ever root for losing in any stretch, So playing the spoiler to a team that right now is in first place, that it's their division to lose, and having a bad season as we have and winning this game could be like a little bit of a silver lining. However, when we're talking about who starts this game, and I assume that it's going to be Hurts. It's just why switch it
Yeah.
up now? Where it comes to the short leash should have been last week.
Yeah.
So at this point, I feel like that you just let him, sink or swim now. Like he's going to win this game or he's going to lose this game. You don't bring Wentz in this week. You had your chance last week to do that. And the fact that you didn't do it is more a testament to the coaching staff then, not now,
You
because it's
see,
too
I
late.
disagree a little bit. If the Eagles are to win this game and Wentz comes in at the end, and let's say he throws the game winning touchdown, they leave with a good feel. The season ends, and going in the off season, people think about that maybe Wentz has got it together, kind of like the Mitch Trubisky effect, even though it would be for a short amount of time. Mitch Trubisky, if he plays a good game, gets the Bears into the playoffs. Even if they lose the Bears and he plays well, chances are they're going to franchise him at the very least, if not sign him to another contract. And I think if the Eagles could have some reason to feel good about Wentz, they'll want to get him in, even if it's a series of two. But the opportunity has to, arise for that to happen. The only way they get him in if Hurts is truly struggling. I don't think they keep Hurts in all game if he's really struggling, because they realize their playoff implications, for the other three teams in the NFC East. And to just go down timidly with Hurts playing poorly, I can't see that happening.
Well, and see that it goes back to, hey, the offensive line is so decimated, and it's, I mean, six of one, half a dozen of another, really, at this point. It's like I said, they had the opportunity against Dallas to maybe right the ship, to make all these changes again and put him back in for the last 8 minutes of the game. And now we're gonna rely on you. It would have maybe even put Dallas a little bit back. You know what I mean? Because there was still an opportunity to win that game with 8 minutes left.
But why are we giving the Eagle defense a pass?
Oh
The real
no!
reason
Oh
the
no!
Eagles lost
1,100
was
yards in the
their
last two
poor
games. No
defensive
pass
effort. It
from me at
wasn't
all.
Hurts.
No pass from me at all with 1,100 yards in the last two games.
Yeah.
It was pathetic. It was a pathetic performance. I feel like the only two people that were out there playing were Jalen Mills and Darius Slay. And I feel like, and I'm sorry, Singleton. So you have three guys that were playing really well. And like the defensive line, I'm so tired of Schwartz's defense. It's very old and tired to me. They weren't getting any pressure once Cox got out of the game. And then after that, he didn't blitz at all. He didn't. I don't even know if he knows how to blitz really well. And that's the reason. And then to not give any help on the outside to
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
You know who annoys me? I know I'm switching defense to offense. Alton Jeffrey. I mean, does he show up or what?
Alshon?
Oh yeah,
I'm not. The last game that he plays as an Eagle will be the happiest game for me to watch him. I feel like that he has been the silent cancer of this season. And even last season. So I feel like that things didn't turn around until he got out of the locker room last year. And I feel like that once he came back into the locker room this year, that he started to, it started to permeate, and you see him play so much better when it was Hurts than when it was Wentz. Like, I don't know how many times we saw the alligator arms when Wentz was throwing the ball, but now he's like playing defender, and like he's going after and jumping up for balls and looking like he's Jerry Rice. Somebody made a meme about that. So it's like I feel that he hasn't earned his money, and that he's been stealing money from the Eagles this year. And I expect, obviously, next year as well, that he'll be stealing money.
So, Pags, now I'm making you the owner / GM of the Eagles. Next year, what is the biggest area that you're going to be concerned with? Is it just quarterback? Is it everything? I mean, what are you looking for? I mean, the Eagles last year, they limped into the playoffs. They showed a lot of grit, a lot of determination, getting to the playoffs. And with third stringers basically as receivers and beat up offensive line, they still came back. They still played really well at the end to get in the playoffs. So you're the GM, you're the owner. What do you do for next year? What's your biggest areas of concern?
My biggest area of concern is, well, one, I need to make sure that the offensive line is, again, shored back up again. So we're going to be getting a lot of people back. You're going to get Brooks back. He was the best guard in the league last year, and then he tore his Achilles in the playoff game, and he's been out all season. Lane Johnson, again, once you have that side of the line reshored back up again, and you know that that's going to be okay, then you can start to work on the right side. I know that they keep Sayamalu around for a reason, mostly because they're expecting Kelsey to retire at any moment. I think Kelsey is not going to go out the way he did this year. I think he's going to come back for another year, especially since he's a Pro Bowl player. And then you got to worry about the left side of the line. So you have the right side of the line taken care of. I think that Mailata is really good, but I think that you have to start to really hone in on a couple of guards and get a couple of backups. And then I want to work on the defense. The cornerbacks, we've gotten rid of a number of cornerbacks this year that have done really well at other teams. And I get really frustrated about that because I feel that was a Schwartz move again. If I'm the GM, I am firing Schwartz. It's time to get rid of him and bring in. I'd like to bring in somebody who's a little bit more innovative, somebody who likes to put a little bit more pressure on the quarterback so that the quarterback's got to make certain decisions. I feel like that the quarterbacks had too much time to think, and because of that, there's been only 6 interceptions, I believe, this year by the Eagles, which is really awfully low. And that's where I'd spend most of my time. I think that the defensive line's okay. The cornerbacks is really where I'd start to invest a little bit of time. I think that the wide receivers are going to be okay. I mean, you're stuck with Alshon, and Jackson's probably going to get cut.
Didn't he sign a 3-year deal, though? I thought he
did, but I think that it was more cap friendly to cut him after this year.
But why would they cut him? He's been hurt this year. Hasn't been his performance.
Because he's been hurt every year. That's the problem. So, and I think it's time to start bringing in some, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Quez Watkins. You have no choice but to have to let Reagor play it out to see if he's going to be worthwhile, especially since every week you're hearing about Jefferson. Ortega Whiteside's probably going to disappear, but you have Ward, you have Hightower, who is going to work on the offseason on the strength of his hands, because his hands really, he had the speed, he would get open, he just couldn't catch the ball. So, and then the other spot is I think Ertz is going to go. After watching that performance on Sunday, I wouldn't be upset.
Don't they love him in Philly, though? He's like iconic in a certain sense.
He is. So is his wife. You know what I mean? His wife is more iconic, but it's what have you done for me? And especially this season, he's been pouting and crying that he didn't get a renewed contract, and it showed up on the field. And that's what really matters to me most. And that's
a shame, Paz, because he's one of the most last couple of years has been one of the most productive tight ends in the league, and hopefully, I hear what you're saying, and I don't know. I mean, that I seen him with Wentz anyway. He was like a security blanket to Wentz. I mean, a lot of great catches and a lot of good passes. So let's turn to the NBA really quick. The 76ers, Daryl Morey gets fined $50,000 for a tweet about Harden. What's going on there? Why is he liking tweets? I don't get it.
I don't understand that whole He sent that tweet out, I believe, just to give a little tout to how Harden, and they said it was more like that was more collusive. That was the problem. That's where the $50,000 came from. I heard that he's friends with Harden, and he was trying to give him some love. And it's this Harden thing is really funny to me. He's not coming here. He's not coming to Philadelphia. We just don't have the asset to be able to do that without getting rid of Simmons. And I don't know that I'm interested in getting rid of Simmons.
I agree. I agree.
Exactly, yeah.
So their record is 3-1 right now. I know it's early in the season. I mean, they had a tough game, but they still won. That the only loss you have is what happened last year. You're losing the away games, at Cleveland. So, what do you think about? I mean, again, it's early, but what do you think about the 3-1 start and having the Doc there as your head coach?
So at the moment, I am unimpressed, to be honest. So the first couple of games I let it go because it's the excitement of the season starting back up. But losing against Cleveland really was a little telling. Without Joel Embiid in there, we're going to play uninspired. Is that how that's going to go? And then a couple of things from yesterday's game that I saw was that they came out sluggish to start. He wasn't able to turn it around, and then in the third quarter again, it was like they started to take control, and they were leading, and then all of a sudden, Simmons started to play defense, and that's really what brought them back into the game. I kind of knew that they were going to win the game because Toronto's not that good. Toronto's just not a good team this year, and because of that, I felt that the Sixers were going to come back and win the game. However, it was really, the fact that they came out sluggish in the third quarter, which was a Brett Brown thing to have happen, and I guess I was a little bit more excited to see Doc, get control of it and say, okay, this is how we're going to get back into this game. But I feel that as of right now, and I know that it's early in the season, that I'd like to see them play a lot more inspired.
Well, could it be the Sixers have mostly the same players as they had last year, and Doc Rivers a new coach, and not really having a long preseason? Is it a question of them maybe learning his system, that things are just going slow in the beginning, and then they'll heat up, and then they'll put it all together?
I hope so. So, like one of the things that I, listening to sports talk radio on my way in this morning was everybody was crying that Ben Simmons doesn't score a lot of points. Ben Simmons shot the ball 11 times last game, which was something that he doesn't typically do. He was 3 for 11, which again is common for somebody who doesn't shoot the ball that often. So it was something that I expected to see. But I like the fact that he was trying to shoot. I like the fact that he was pushing it a little bit to try to get on track, because this is early in the season. This is when you want those mistakes to have happen. When you start to get later in the season, you want to be able to. If he makes 3 more of those shots, now he's 6 for 11. You know what I mean? So that's what you're looking for. You want him to be 6 for 11, 6 for 12, and going to the line and getting better at foul shooting, where he's going to the line 6 and 7 times, and he's like 12 for 16. From the free throw line. That's where I'd like to see him. I'm not trying to change everything about his game. I like the fact that he's trying more, and I think that's a component of Doc Rivers. Doc going out there and saying, "Hey, I want you to. I don't care that you miss. Put it up. Let's see what happens."
Pags, Simmons is there to drive to the hoop. He's there to play good defense. I mean, he's an athlete. That's where that's where he's an asset. If his shooting comes along, that's even better. But I mean, when you take Ben Simmons, you're not looking him to be, as we brought up, James Harden. You're looking for him to come in and provide that spark of going to the hole and making those shots and driving lanes. And like I said, playing good defense. Have you seen Doc Rivers mention about going small ball, as a team with putting Simmons at center? Have you seen any of that yet?
No, not yet. And I think it's because he wants to establish what he has right now first. It's early in the season. And I know that he mentions the small ball. He's kind of putting the bug in the ear. That's what he wants to do. I think that's what he's going to start to try to do once. Yeah, Joel's not going to be playing all the games this year, any back-to-back games. That's where small ball's really going to start to come into play. And I think that he's trying to put the bug in the ear because they do have some speed and they do now have some outside shooters. I mean, I was like, they triple teamed, towards the end of the game, they triple teamed Joel and he threw it out to Seth Curry, who banged a three, and that really put that ice the game yesterday. So those were the types of plays that you want to see happen, and that's what's going to be able to happen if you have, excuse me, if you have a point center bringing the ball down, because it's going to play small ball is what that's going to wind up being.
Definitely agree with that. In hockey, they just announced that they're going to have a triple header for opening day. The Flyers will be involved in that. What are your thoughts? I mean, the Flyers, great home record, one of the favorites last year to win it all. They get in that crazy playoff format and end up getting beat. This year, it looks like they have close to a full season. What are your thoughts on the Flyers establishing that home ice advantage again? We don't know what it's going to be like with the with the COVID and stuff. Maybe they let some fans in, maybe they don't. Who knows? But with the regular season and without that crazy playoff picture, what do you think of the Flyers' chances next year? This year coming up?
I love them. I love the Flyers this year. I felt that the playoff, the bubble last year kind of did a couple of things. It accentuated. I felt that last year that the one team that could have beaten us was going to be the Lightning. So I expected that the Lightning was going to win the cup, and that's what happened. They really were a strong team. However, the bubble and the way that we went from the number 4 seed to the number 1 seed actually hurt us in a big way. We played against 2 trap teams, and Trotter, the coach of the Islanders, is a Hall of Fame guy. You know what I mean? He's just really a fantastic coach, and he outcoached the Flyers. It's like we have Alain Vigneault is a well-known coach, and I felt like he was outcoached during that entire series off of the trap. However, when it came down to it, they didn't have the type of trap that could stop the Lightning, where the Flyers, I felt, would have been a better matchup for the Lightning because we play a little bit more of the run and gun. That's where we actually excel. When we get stuck in the trap kind of hurts us, as we found out with Montreal and the beginning part of that of the bubble when the playoff first started, where Montreal would won a couple of games like big, mostly because when we're not crisp on our things that we're doing well, like our passing and such, because we are carriers. We carry the puck till we get into the zone. And if you have to pass it through the zone, that's where trap teams get you. And that's what they made us do. And that's where they were able to really stop us from doing the things that we did best.
I think what hurt, but I think what hurt the Flyers the most, more than any other team, was perhaps a pandemic. They were arguably the best team in the NHL, at least playing that way. I'm going from recollection right now. Now we have the 5-month layoff. And something about it when it resumed, even though they were good and they were favored to beat the Islanders, they were never quite the same. Maybe it's just my imagination, but the Islanders seem to be skating just a tiny bit quicker than the Flyers during that playoff
very
series,
much so.
beating them to the puck. And I don't know, is that a question of conditioning with the 5-month layoff, of whether the Islanders just had skaters that were marginally quick? I have no clue. But it just seemed the speed factor in that series favored the Islanders.
So I'm going to say something that's not really like a sports related thing, but when I play softball and we go and I feel like a team that drinks together wins together. And when you were in the bubble, when the Islanders were having a great time, they were having a lot of fun, they were doing their thing, and teams that really became very cohesive, similar to Dallas. Dallas was not really expected to go to the Stanley Cup either, but they became very cohesive in that bubble and was able to rely on each other. And I felt that the Flyers mix of the young and the old was separated, and that was where they just didn't have the same cohesiveness as the Islanders did, even as Montreal did. We got past Montreal, but I felt like Montreal really gelled as a team. They were all young kids. They had we were a young team. We were like 26 years old. They were like 25 and a half years old
Yeah.
as an average age. So they became cohesive and played better. And I feel like that the Islanders willed their way into the stand. And then when they had to go over to Vancouver, that it all left. You know what I mean? Because Toronto was their home. Now they're forcing everybody to go out west to a whole different scenario. You're changing rooms. You're changing the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden things changed, and that's where I think that the Islanders faltered a little bit, because had it been in Toronto, I think they may have been more of a force, but it just didn't happen that way.
Well, it's going to be really interesting to see if they can get a full season in and not. I mean, I don't know if they're going to bubble or not. That'll be crazy if they even try that, because you're talking so many different cities would be involved. I'm not sure what's going to happen with hockey this year. I just know I'm a little more excited than I was last year because it was so competitive. And the playoff system did for last year for the COVID. I mean, it did make it a little bit more exciting.
I tell you, there's nothing more exciting than playoff hockey. Playoff hockey is really, as far as all the teams, that's why they call the Stanley Cup the hardest trophy in sports to achieve.
Well, playoff hockey is so unpredictable. In the NBA, it's historic if a number 8 seed beats a number 1 seed. But in hockey, it routinely could happen. Okay?
When the Sixers beat the number 2 seed as the number 7 seed, that was a big deal, and it's expected. You know what I mean? It's just that doesn't happen. But in hockey, I mean, but go back to 2010, the 7 and 8 seed, the Flyers and the Canadiens were the ones in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
So, exactly. Pags, great job today. You hit on all cylinders. It was fun watching you in Irving at the Cowboys Stadium. I'll be in touch with you probably later on today sometime, either by message or I'll call you or whatever. You did a great job as always. Thank you for coming on, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Maybe we'll have some Philly news next week. But
hopefully. So you guys have a happy New Year, and to you and all your listeners.
Thank you very much, Pags. Have a great day.
You too.
So there you go, Jack, the Philly sports guy, and covering not only football but basketball and hockey, and does a great job in all three.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yes.
I know that. I'm not surprised. He does a super job.
Yes, but
I got the trivia question correct too.
Yeah. So I mean, what can you say? I mean, it's no reflection on you, Jack. Don't worry about it. So we're gonna.
No, I'm not annoyed. I'm not.
Okay. So, folks, we're going to take a real quick break. We'll be back, and we'll on the other side, and we'll be talking about the standings, the playoff picture, all kinds of stuff. We have our Wall of Fame coming up, and it's going to be a hockey guy. So stick with us, and we'll be right back.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast to help improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211-INFO-LINE. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids tried at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're here live Wednesday through Sunday at 8 to 10 a.m. And we've got some really big news, Jack. We are on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Just starting out today, we'll be joining a lot of different broadcasts and podcasts all in one place, so you can go ahead and check out the shows. The goal of the network is to get 24 hours of streaming Northeast Sports for all the people up in this area, and so we're on that right now. We got our Max Sports Facebook page where we're live. We're live on YouTube and Twitch. Jack, we just had Jamie Pags, the Philly sports guy, on, giving us a bunch of great information about Philly sports. It's always a pleasure having him on. And so there you go, Jack. We're back to the regular show. And what we got, folks, over at macandjacksports.com on the website, we have a wall of fame, Jack. And we have inducted baseball, football, basketball, and our newest inductee is somebody from hockey, Jack. And a legend, believe it or not, even has more goals if you count the WHA than the great Wayne Gretzky. So our inductee is Gordie Howe. He was called the Legends. Howe's hat trick was a goal, an assist, and a fight. That was his hat trick, Jack. He was very, very tough sports hockey player. He played till he was in his 50s. His sons played with him on a team, and if you mess with his sons, you mess with Gordie. A 6-time scoring champ, 23-time All-Star, and won 4 cups in his career. An unbelievable hockey player, Jack.
Oh, like incredible. And you see the age he played till. I think that movie Slapshot, the old-time movie with Paul Newman, was based on the character of Gordie Howe. He even kind of resembled Gordie Howe in the movie. I mean, a great player, tough as nails. And Gordie Howe came up during a time where hockey players had to fight to get respect. Okay? Right. And no one messed with Gordie Howe. So just think of it. The most skillful player in the game, or arguably the best player of his generation, was also the toughest. And Gordie Howe would be an enforcer as well, protecting his teammates and It's funny when his son Mark Howe came to the NHL, he kind of was an enforcer for his son. No one would mess with Gordy's kid because then they know they'd be held to pay with Gordy himself. And just a great, great player. I was just thinking a moment ago, you take the city of Detroit. Was Gordie Howe the greatest athlete in Detroit history? Well, there's competition there. There's Ty Cobb. And actually, the great Joe Louis was from Detroit. I know,
Right.
can you put a box in that equation? But, you know, you could match Gordie Howe next to Ty Cobb and Joe Louis as really being, the greatest athletes to ever come out of Detroit. I'm sure I'm missing someone here.
Yeah, I mean,
Barry Sanders.
there you go, Barry Sanders,
Yeah, okay.
another one. Listen, I mean, even Wayne Gretzky was his idol was Gordie Howe. So our inductee, Jack, to the Wall of Fame. There you go, is the great Gordie Howe. Probably, in my opinion, anyway.
He took longevity to another level, Matt.
Yes.
If
Yes.
we're going to judge greatness on longevity, and longevity is the most important fact in itself, then Gordie Howe was the greatest player in NHL history.
I definitely agree. I agree with that. And how can you argue with 23 All-Star appearances and cups and everything else that goes along with being a great hockey player? So let's, with the season coming to the end, Jack, basically, we're probably going to be doing our last standings show where we come up and we get everybody up to date. We'll talk about the playoff picture. We'll talk about what's going on in the playoffs. So let's start with the AFC Bills. The AFC East. The Bills, of course, have wrapped up the division and still in the hunt for seeding as far as second goes for home field advantage. Miami is still in the playoff picture at 10-5. The Patriots, suffered a embarrassing loss really last on Sunday. On
Monday night, Monday night. They didn't look good against Buffalo, that's for sure.
A lot of questions. And the Jets on a 2-game winning streak, Jack, they might finish out the season beating the Pats and go 3-0 in the last 3 games, Jack.
Listen, the Ram victory for the Jets, that was impressive. They beat a really good team in the Rams. But let's be honest, they beat the Cleveland Brown junior varsity for the most part. It's like junior varsity players joining the varsity. All the receivers were out for Cleveland, and Baker Mayfield had no one he could really throw to. And the offensive line was a mess. It was just a nightmarish situation for Cleveland going into the game. If you recall, Mac, I picked the Jets to win that game. Do you recall that? I can't hear you, Mac. I lost you.
Yes, I do, Jack.
Now I hear you.
Yeah, there you go.
But I did pick the Jets to win that game because I knew Cleveland was decimated. The Jets weren't going to beat a healthy Cleveland Brown team, a Cleveland Brown team that had the majority of their players raring to go.
Well, I don't know about that, Jack. I think that the Jets defense has come alive. Your receivers are for the first time all on the field and healthy. We had Lance Meadow, who is probably the busiest man in sports from the Giants kickoff, ESPN, Westwood One. He's all over the place. He said, "Why even why throw Darnell to the Wolves right now? Why are you worried about Trevor Lawrence? And you still have a quarterback there that." Did a great job for y'all last year. He was 6-2 when he played. He's a playmaker. The team still was bad, and he went in 6-2. And now Sam is playing really good ball right now.
Mac, wait a second. Lance Meadow knows a lot more about football than I do. I want to get that out of the way. Secondly, Lance Meadow is wrong on the Sam Darnold thing. In this sense, Lance Meadow feels we shouldn't rush to judgment in Sam Darnold. He has a lot of potential. Let's not rush to get him out of there. 3 years he's been with the Jets. No one is rushing. It's 3 years, whatever the darn reason is. if he's hurt, if he's this, if he's that. The bottom line, he's been with the Jets for 3 years, and we're still debating whether he should be the Jet quarterback of the future or not. I
Well,
mean, this is following along what Jacksonville did with Blake Bortles. You keep waiting, waiting, and waiting, okay, just because you drafted a guy highly. That you have to cut ties at some point. I'm not saying they necessarily should do with Donald. Let's see if there's a better option. Uh, One of the quarterbacks in the draft, okay, who's if there's someone else who they like enough, could it be Justin Fields? Could it be, Taylor, whatever? Is anyone in the draft that they love so much that they would want to, take and replace Donald? It's just, I'm tongue tied here. I'm frustrated. I don't want to, really, I am tongue tied because I'm frustrated about all this Sam Darnold talk, how good he looks. He's making some good throws. He's making a lot of bad throws too, so they win a couple of games.
right.
It wasn't like he was lighting it up these couple of games. He was effective. He was good for a couple of games, but I could point out games where he hasn't been good.
Yeah, Jack, but there is something to be said about a bad organization with a good quarterback, right? I mean, you can have the greatest quarterback potentially in the league and then play for a terrible organization. And I don't know if that reflects on the indecisiveness of the Jets, the organization itself. I think the organization of the Jets needs a complete overhaul from GM, maybe even to the owners, for God's sakes, all the way down to the coach. And to me, they're doing nothing but hurting Sam Darnold. And I don't care if you have Trevor Lawrence in there right now. He's not going to – the Jets aren't going to win, period.
I'm not talking about winning. I'm talking about how the quarterback looks. Look, Cincinnati was terrible early in the year. They've won a couple in a row.
Right.
So they're coming on a little, lately. But Joe Burrow was looking good, their rookie quarterback, even though the Bengals were bad. With the Chargers, they've been winning recently. They're at 6-9.
Right.
But Justin Herbert was looking good while the Chargers were looking bad. Okay? Sam Darnold wasn't looking good when the Jets were looking bad. It's easy to keep pointing out, that the team's not good. They don't have this. They don't have that. And it's true. It's a team effort. I understand, but Sam Darnold hasn't shown he can do anything exceptional. He hasn't shown you he should be a guy going forward. Instead, we have a question mark. We could say, well, he hasn't shown you he shouldn't be the guy going forward. I agree with that. He hasn't shown you conclusively he's not their quarterback of the future. So we have hope for him, you could say. But this is going on 3 years already. Yeah. At what point are we going to resolve the Sam Darnold situation after 4, 5, 6 years? And then we're going to come to the conclusion he wasn't the guy after all? I mean, the same thing happened with Geno Smith with the Jets. It was only 1 year. After the first year with Geno Smith as a quarterback, the Jets were 8-8. And I told myself, I don't know whether he's their quarterback of the future. I just didn't know. The Jets didn't know. So they brought him back for the next year as their quarterback, and he flopped. He apparently wasn't their guy. If you can get someone better than Sam Darnold, you do so. It's that simple.
Okay. All right. Spoken very authoritatively, Jack. The AFC West, so are the Chiefs, of course, number 1 seed, 14-1. The Raiders at 7-8. A little controversy in the call to go for a touchdown instead of kick the field goal. The Chargers, as you said, are looking competitive at 6-9, and Denver is at 5-10. Jack, the Raiders started off hot. They looked like they were going to be in the playoffs. They had their destiny in their own hands, and I think they're out. They're definitely out, Jack. There's no way they're going to be in there.
I'll tell you, the Heat's going to get on John Gruden, I think, beginning next year. If the Raiders don't turn it around, they're 7-8. If they beat the Broncos, they're 8-8, meaning they were average for the year. John Gruden signed a 10-year contract. He's not completely in charge football operations there. Mike Malak was, so on. I don't know how it's playing out in the off season. Derek Carr's obviously his franchise quarterback. He settled on Derek Carr. And Derek Carr's a decent quarterback.
Yeah.
And we just don't know with John Gruden. I mean, what he was considered to be in such great demand from being a past Super Bowl winning coach and working in the ESPN booth. But the heat's going to be on him, just like the heat's going to be on the team they're playing this week on John Elway, who's in charge of football operations for the Denver Broncos. They're 5-10. And John Elway, no one knows quarterbacking better than John Elway, you would think.
You would think that.
He'd take a hand on it. And what the heck's been happening since Peyton Manning left? He had Brock Osweiler there. That didn't work out. He was there the same time as Manning. Then he got Case Keenum over there, Joe Flacco, now Drew Lock. And we were talking about Sam Darnold a moment ago. This is Drew Lock's second year he's completing. We don't know whether the Broncos should move forward with him as the quarterback. We don't know. He hasn't shown us enough to say yes. He hasn't shown us enough to say no.
Yeah.
So but the Broncos got to do something.
Well, I think the Broncos have a lot more problems than just a quarterback, Jack. Just like the Jets. Again, last year, Locke looked pretty good at the end of the year. He seemed to have some promise and potential. But, again, you're putting a young quarterback, this Darnold to me is still young, in a position on a bad team. And, both of them are not Peyton Manning, and both of them are not, of that stature. I mean, even Drew Brees.
They're not that bad, but Denver has a good defense, actually. They have a decent defense. I mean, but Drew Lock himself has performed really poorly certain games. He'll have moments of brilliance. I gave an example before, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. Bad teams, they played really well. And to just speak about the Chargers, they're in the same division there. Anthony Lynn, their head coach, the question's going to be whether or not Anthony Lynn should come back as the Charger coach next year. They're 6-9. If they win their last game, then they're 7-9. That would have been a really strong finish, winning the last few in a row. But if Anthony Lynn's to come back, it's got to be under this condition as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to hear that he's done a good job. He's done a miserable job this year, and that's got to be the acknowledgement. Look, you have a body of work. You got us to the playoffs a couple of times in the past. You made certain mistakes this past year. We can rectify them moving forward and so on. But I don't want to hear any nonsense about the Chargers rebounding, winning a few in a row, and Anthony Lynn doing a good job, because he's done an utterly miserable job with in-game decisions that hurt the Chargers early in the year. So we'll see what goes on. But if they win their last game, my feeling is Anthony Lynn will come back, and maybe they'll be successful moving forward. But keep this in mind: he's the coach that didn't even want to play Justin Herbert. Tyrod Taylor was his man.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I just think he didn't think Justin Herbert was ready yet. Danny, as a Giants fan, he says, let's go Eagles, beat the Skins, and help out my Giants. So,
well, Giants better help themselves out, Danny, because I'm not coming up with a prediction yet, but there's a good chance Dallas is going to beat the Giants Sunday. I'll firm up my prediction when the time comes late in the week. But the way the Giants are going now, Dallas is playing better. So we'll see what unfolds.
I mean, the Giants have got to win. It doesn't matter what Washington it does matter that Washington loses, but they got to take care of their business.
Wouldn't that be great if the Eagles win and the Giants win, and the Giants are the NFC East champions with a 6-10 record? I'd love it.
That's crazy, isn't it?
So can you imagine they're holding the Super Bowl trophy and then they go on a tear like the old Giant teams did under Eli Manning, especially the last one that was 9-7. Can you imagine the Giants win the Super Bowl with a 6-10 record? Listen, the Giants aren't good enough to go through the playoffs, even if they should get fortunate and win the division. They're just not good enough. They don't have the upside to do it. But
Yeah,
actually, Dallas has more upside, more big game players.
Stop,
No, I'm
stop,
just
Jack.
saying Dallas, if anyone's going to go
Year, Jack.
there,
Every
it
year,
must be Dallas. You never know.
well, with the Cowboys, every year they're going to win the Super Bowl. It's ridiculous. It's boring, and it's
Amari
old.
Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott.
I know, Jack.
Experienced NFL quarterback.
I know.
They
It's
got
not.
Lamb at the other wide receiver
It's not
position.
going to happen. I mean, fool me once, shame on you.
No, I don't think it's going to happen. But
No.
but Dallas, you could see, has some really talented guys, and if everything gelled, then as a 7-9 team could make some noise in the playoffs. I can't see the Giants making any noise if they should get in.
You know how old that song is, Jack, about the Cowboys? It's an old song that the record is scratched. It won't play anymore. It's done. So let's push on to the AFC North, Jack. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They won the division at 12-3. Baltimore and Cleveland. You could have two teams coming out of the North with Baltimore and Cleveland. They're both tied at 10-5. And the surprising Bengals have been on a little winning streak without Burrows, sitting at 4-10. They're resting Ben this last game. It's a smart move. I don't normally agree with that, as I said earlier, resting your starters, because I believe that football has a lot more to do with momentum than a lot of sports that have showed us that with wildcard teams. But with Big Ben being hurt, his leg, he's older now. He's been beat up quite a bit this year. I think it's a good move by the Steelers to let him and maybe some other starters.
Well, they have Mason Rudolph, their backup quarterback. He was a third-round draft pick a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it has to be tough for a young quarterback when you're drafted and you have to be on a team that already has a franchise quarterback like the Steelers had with Big Ben. And Big Ben didn't exactly welcome Mason Rudolph into the fold. When he heard the Steelers drafted him in the third round, he said that that's not good for the team, that he feels that should have drafted at a position of need. And he said, it's not my job to help him. I'll be nice to him, but it's not my job to help him.
That is
Big
true.
Ben wasn't exactly welcoming in that sense. But Mason Rudolph gets to play for the Steelers, and for Cleveland, who needs the game, who isn't getting, it's welcome news for them.
I'm not sure about this.
Favorite to beat the Steelers based on the Steelers. Yeah,
I'm not sure about the answer to this, Jack. So I'm asking you: is Myles Garrett playing also for Cleveland?
From what I understand, he's supposed to be back.
Well, remember what happened last time that Rudolph and Myles Garrett played, right?
Well, I remember what happened, and Myles Garrett said that Mason Rudolph used the N-word then. He mentioned it a week later.
Right.
Had Mason Rudolph said something to him that outrageous, why did he wait a week to mention it after Myles Garrett was castigated the whole time through the media and so on? And listen, the only thing I'll say in defense of Myles Garrett, when you look at the penalties handed down, Mason Rudolph actually came at Myles Garrett.
Yes.
What caused it, I don't know, but he physically came at him, and it was a knee-jerk reaction by Myles Garrett to swing his helmet. He didn't just go after him with the helmet. He swung it in kind of self-defense. So I'm going to defend Myles Garrett in this sense, that I think the penalty was too severe against Myles Garrett, much too severe. I didn't like it at all. Do I think Myles Garrett is lying what he said about Mason Rudolph? I agree with Mike Tomlin, okay, who's the coach of Mason Rudolph. No, I mean, Myles Garrett, I feel, is lying about the whole thing. Now Myles Garrett said a few weeks ago, he wouldn't mind shaking Mason Rudolph's hand and squash the whole thing to agree to disagree. If I'm Mason Rudolph, I don't think I shake his hand if he assassinates my character and he lies about me in such a way.
That's a good point, Jack. And the first hit that Garrett has, and he will hit Rudolph, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Whether
I don't think.
Let me finish. Whether the offensive linemen come quickly to his rescue and kind of shoo Myles Garrett away. I'm not talking about Rudolph and Myles Garrett. I'm going to be interested to see what the teammates do, the offensive linemen, the running backs and such, when Myles Garrett gets that first hit.
I don't think Myles Garrett, my impression is, despises Mason Rudolph. I think Myles Garrett knows he made something up about Mason Rudolph, mentioning it a week later. Mike Tomlin, who's African American, who's Mason Rudolph's coach, put the matter to rest a while ago. He got interviewed and said, no, Mason Rudolph didn't say what was said.
Yeah.
And there's no evidence in the slightest pointing to that. And if Mason Rudolph said it, you don't wait a week to start mentioning that.
Right.
After it's all over the news as your reason.
Yeah.
Listen, Myles Garrett made a mistake that's hard to walk back on.
Yeah. All I'm saying, Jack, is that's what's going to be interesting to me. Not so much the personal back and forth between him and the coach. I'm just interested to see what happens on that first hit, how the teammates react, whether they get overprotected.
No, I think what's going to happen, I think you're going to see Myles Garrett reach out to Mason Rudolph at some point, try to shake his hand after the game, try to just say, let's squash it and let's move on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't, whatever Mason Rudolph's reaction is going to be, I'm fine with. If he wants to shake his hand and squash it, I'm fine with that. If he wants to say, get away from me, after you could make up such, assassinate my character like that, I'm fine with that too. Whatever Mason Rudolph does in that regard is fine. But I do think the penalty, in fairness to Myles Garrett, was too severe by the NFL. 4 games for basically defending himself against the player charging at him. And I think Mason Rudolph should have gotten suspended, missed a game. Myles Garrett maybe missed a game or 2, and they both should have been penalized.
Yeah, I mean, the only part I disagree with you with there, Jack, is that he swung the helmet. Now, if he dropped the helmet and went after him without the helmet, I think I would agree with you more. To swing a helmet at somebody that has no helmet on, whether you're just mad or you lose control, is going too far. And that's the point I disagree with you with. If he threw down the helmet and then grabbed Rudolph and threw him on the ground, I would have had no problem with that. But when you're swinging a helmet at some guy that has no helmet on, it's almost like using a weapon. And that's where I think the suspension was warranted. And I do agree with you to the point that Rudolph should have been suspended almost as many games because he did incite it. But again, there's 2 different things here. You get mad, you get upset, you throw a player down, you take a helmet, hit a player without a helmet on is just, no, you can't do that.
Okay, well, we agree with this at least. The penalty was too lopsided. Myles Garrett, if it was too severe for Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph should have, been suspended a couple of games then as well.
I agree with that.
I mean, so that I wasn't comfortable with, the decision handed down by the NFL, because Myles Garrett really was in a self-defense mode, whether he could have defended himself without the helmet. But it was a knee-jerk reaction. You're getting attacked that moment. It wasn't like he came after him with the helmet.
Well, listen,
So it's a matter, we can argue it all the time.
I agree with you to a point. The helmet, swinging at somebody without no helmet on, I think is a little too extreme. Danny asked us, his first time hearing us, what teams do we like? He's from Springfield. He's a Giant fan. So, Danny, to tell you the truth, I try not to bring up my fandom too much because I want to be fair, and I do like all the local teams because that's what we cover. But I'm a Giant fan since 1967 when I was old enough to start watching TV, and that's where my heart is. But as far as I like to watch all the local teams do well, whether it's the Jets, even the Patriots, even the Eagles. I want to see them all do well because to me, I mean, we're from the greatest part of the country up here. This may be a cop-out, I don't mean it to be, but we're from the greatest part of the country where sports is great. And that goes for baseball, basketball and hockey, and that's why we're doing this show. And Jack, who's your favorite team, Jack?
Listen, I'm a big Yankee fan. I'm a big Jet fan. I like the Nets. I mean, I'm a Net fan. I mean, I'm an Islander fan. But yeah, I want to see the Rangers win. I want to see the New Jersey Devils do well. I want to see the Mets do well. I want to see the New York Giants do well. Danny, I'm sorry. When we talk local teams, there's a difference on the show or what I consider locally in my heart being in New York. I couldn't give a darn about the Patriots or Red Sox or Celtics. I couldn't care less.
There you go.
They could lose every game as far as I'm concerned, but I will talk about them objectively.
Yes.
Phillies, I couldn't care less about. The Eagles, the 76ers.
Well, you know something, Jack?
I mean, but listen, I can talk objectively.
Right.
Sometimes I root for one of them to play. If the Sixers are playing the Celtics, I might root for one or the other. Or
Right.
the Patriots, Eagles. It all depends.
See, to me, Jack, if you love sports, all right, I can respect certain teams, even though they're my team's rival. For instance, I'll give you an example, and Yankee fans out there will hate me for saying this. When the Boston Red Sox finally went to the World Series, I was rooting for them to win. And I'm going to tell you why. The Boston Red Sox, to me, even though I love the Yankees to death, I mean, I've been a Yankee fan again since I've been walking. To me, the Boston Red Sox have always been a lunch pail team. They've always worked hard. They've always have a competitive team for the most part. They fell off a little bit last year. Well, a lot, really. But, I mean, to see them come out of nowhere, get rid of that Ruth curse, even though they beat my Yankees in the pennant, coming from behind, which we should have won, beside the point. Even though they did that, when they got to the World Series, I rooted for the Red Sox to win. When the Mets played the Red Sox back in 1986, I rooted for the Mets. So there's different teams that I root for because of different reasons. But if you go to my heart, Yankees and Giants. So there you go.
Now, funny thing about that 2004 season, I picked the Red Sox to win the World Series before the year. And then they're playing the Yankees in the playoffs. And I'm thinking the Red Sox are finally going to break through. Then the Yankees go up 3-0. And I remember thinking, I can't believe this. My Yankees actually going to the World Series. No team ever loses, who's up 3-0.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. And I'm thinking, wow, man, oh man, what a pleasant surprise.
Right.
This was supposed to be the year of the Red Sox. As soon as the Red Sox came back, they tied the fourth game up, game 4 in the 9th inning, then won in extra innings. The Yankees up 3-1. I kid you not, Mac. I felt the Yankees were going to lose that series. I just felt it. That was it. They were going to lose this series. And you could kind of see it getting away. And even when they had the 7th and deciding game at Yankee Stadium, Mike Mussina said later, he was in the outfield before the game for pregame warm-ups. And he said, and he was talking to one of the other players saying, I think we're going to lose this game. We had our chances to win. And they didn't think they were going to, he didn't think they were going to win the game at that point. And it happened. And then listen, no excuses. The Red Sox had a great, great team. And it just shows you the momentum changes in baseball quicker than in any other sport, perhaps. You could win a few games in a row and look well on your way. Because in game 3, the Yankees beat the Red Sox 19-8.
Yeah.
Total domination. And then they're winning going into the 9th inning of game 4. And then the whole thing turned around.
Yeah. So, Danny, thanks for tuning us in. And thanks for your comments. So let's get back to the standings, Jack, and we'll get to the playoff picture right after that. In the South, the Tennessee Titans and the Colts were tied at 10-5. Pittsburgh came back and beat the Colts, or the Colts might have wrapped it up. Houston at 4-11. J.J. Watt came out and made some comments about playing on a 4-11 team, which were very enlightening. Hopefully for all the players in the league. The Jags have the first-round pick next year, Jack. The Jags compete every week, Jack. I mean, they don't lose games by more than like 7 or 3 points. They're always in games, it seems.
Not last week against Chicago, they didn't show up. They were anxious. True.
I think they wanted to make sure they had that.
So they got the Trevor Lawrence.
I think
They're celebrating the loss in
yes.
Jacksonville.
So I think Trevor Lawrence will fit in well with the Jags. But what do you think of the Titans and the Colts? I mean, the Colts, they got a great defense, a great running game. Titans have a great running game and kind of no defense. I mean, I don't know if either of those teams goes far enough.
Let me ask you this, Mac. Indianapolis conceivably could miss the playoffs with an 11-5 record, and the Giants could conceivably win their division with a 6-10 record and host a playoff game. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time that a team with a losing record has hosted a playoff game, Jack. It's not really nothing. It's not the first time. Let's put it that way.
Seattle Seahawks did, and they won the first game.
Yeah.
They beat the Chicago Bears, as I recall.
Something a lot of people have thought about, just putting the top teams in and like the NBA does to a point. I don't agree with that. I think that everybody's division is different, Jack. We've seen teams, that play in a weaker division or teams that play in a stronger division. When the playoffs come, it's all a brand new season. So, I mean, maybe you could say it's unfair, but if you're 8-8 and you win the division in a tough division, say like the West, all of them were going to finish 8-8, and Seattle by some chance gets in there. You shouldn't penalize them for being in a tougher division than say the East, where somebody could be, 12-2. So, I mean, I think the way they have it set up is correct. It's kind of sad that a team with a losing record gets in, but I think in the spirit of it, I think it's a good idea, Jack, the way they have.
I think the rules are the rules.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. If 4 teams have weak records, so be it. If they have strong records, so be it. You play to the competition.
Right.
Okay? And that's a matter of luck. But it does create interest on the year. Let's face it. What am I most looking forward to Sunday? I'm looking forward to the Giant-Cowboy game. And then in the evening, to see what goes on with the Eagles and Redskins, to see who's going to win the NFC East. I mean, it's high drama. It's excitement.
Yeah, it is. It's just the rareness of it is very exciting. So now let's go to the NFC East, Jack. We have Washington, a win and they're in. All they got to do is win. All they got to do is beat the Eagles. They're in. Dallas is sitting at 6-9 also. If the Giants win, beat Dallas, and of course Washington loses, the Giants are in. If Dallas wins, beats the Giants, and Washington loses, they're in. So there are 3 teams with a possibility to get in the playoffs. The last game of the season in the NFC least. Philadelphia is out at 4-10-1. We just had the Philly sports guy in, and he's not very happy, and I don't blame him because I think the Eagles really had a letdown against the Cowboys. I don't care if the Cowboys have more talent or not. They just looked like they weren't ready to play. So I don't know what happened there.
When they jumped off to that lead early in the game, the Eagles, it really looked good.
Yeah.
Really looked good. Their defense was just a major disappointment. Like I said, with the Philly guy I was on before, we keep talking about their quarterback situation, but the real reason they were beaten by the Cowboys, their defense was dreadful.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they ran on them, they passed on them, they did whatever they wanted with Philly. So after the NFC East, Jack, we go over to the West where Seattle, 11-4 with a win over the Rams. The Rams are still alive at 9-6. The Cardinals are still alive at 8-7. The 49ers are at 6-9. I know I've said this before. The losing Super Bowl curse. The only one that didn't have that curse was the Buffalo Bills back in the 90s. I don't care what anybody says. When you go all the way to the Super Bowl and you lose that last game for some reason, Jack, if you're not the Patriots or the Bills, it's hard for them to get back and get to that place again.
Well, look at the Rams. They were there a couple of years ago, and they're on the verge of not making the playoffs for 2 years in a row with Jared Goff out. And the Rams look like they finally had it together. They were my pick to lose to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year. And when they're going to look back on this season, why they missed the playoffs, what went wrong, they're going to look at the Jet game.
Yeah.
How on earth did they ever lose to the Jets? I mean, it just no logic behind it at all. And they're playing the Cardinals this week, and Joff is out with the injured thumb, and the Rams have serious issues there, quarterbacking, so on, and moving forward. No one discusses should Joff be their quarterback. I
Yeah.
mean, I put him in the Mitch Trubisky category. You know, he's a game manager. You can only go so far with him. And whether the Rams address their quarterback situation in the offseason, I don't know. But right now, I mean, they're in serious danger not making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals quarterback, from what I understand, Kyler Murray is hurt too. It looks like he's playing, though. So it's going to be it's going to be hard for the Rams to beat the Cardinals. They do have a great defense. They're going to have to shut down Kyler Murray if he's hurt. Maybe that gives him a little break. We'll see. I mean, but still there's something that has to happen for one of them to get in there. And that's going over to the North and the NFC North, where the Bears and the Green Bay Packers play, Jack. The Bears surprised everybody, kind of went dormant for a while. They are now at 8-7 with a win over Green Bay. They're in the playoffs. Green Bay at 12-3. They're still fighting for that first seed. Does Green Bay go for the first seed, Jack, or rest their players?
Oh, you absolutely want to buy. It's very important. Chicago, if they win, they're in the playoffs, point blank.
Right.
That's what kind of makes it a very intriguing game. It's funny that NBC, who has a choice of switching prime games, they have a flex schedule, and they're having the Eagles at the Redskins. Actually, the better game is the Bears at the Packers, because the same implications are there. The Bear-Packer game, I mean, what's at stake's enormous. The playoffs at stake for the Bears. And, in home field with the Packers. I don't believe they locked it up yet. I think New Orleans still has a chance. But, we'll see we'll see what unfolds. Aaron Rodgers is having a phenomenal year again, and he's past Patrick Mahomes for the league's MVP as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with that. And finishing off, you have Minnesota at 6-9. What happened to the Vikings this year? I mean, I know they had a young defense, and their defense is normally one of the strengths of the Vikings. And Detroit at 5-10 looks in total disarray. Atlanta Falcons, they can't hold the lead. Sometimes they play good during the game. Sometimes they're awful. I mean, both of those teams next year, Jack, as far as Detroit and Atlanta go, they've got a lot of things to address. Minnesota, I think, just has to get more experience. They'll be back. But Detroit and Atlanta, I don't know, Jack.
I'll tell you, Atlanta was an upset special by me over the Chiefs last week. And Atlanta grabbed a lead with 4.5 minutes to go. But, of course, you put the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hand, and Patrick Mahomes quickly brought the Chiefs back. They went up 3 points with a little under 2 minutes. But then Atlanta drove down the field, and they missed a 39-yard field goal that would have tied the game and sent it into overtime. But what else is new with the Falcons? So many close games have gotten away, and you wonder going forward next year what the situation is going to be, because Matt Ryan is getting on a little bit. Their quarterback, but he's still effective. And has the Falcons window closed? Has it closed? Or has it just been a tough luck year?
I think the Falcons were set for this year back. They had a chance at really making a run, and I think Julio Jones is getting up there. He gets hurt quite a bit, as you said. Matt Ryan's getting up there. They really. I mean, maybe if a new coach comes in and takes them over, maybe they still got a shot. But Detroit is, like I said, is in shambles.
That mess. Matthew Stafford. You wonder his career being wasted with the Lions.
Oh, it is. It is. There's no doubt about that, Jack.
You see, you could compare him to Phillip Rivers when he was with the San Diego Chargers, but Phillip Rivers' Chargers were always in the mix.
I don't think I
Always
could.
seem to
I
be
don't.
in the mix.
I
The
don't think I
Lions
could.
never are.
I don't think I could compare that, Jack. The Chargers had championship games, and part of the reason why
Yeah.
the Chargers lost was because of Philip Rivers making some mistakes during those games. So I'm not going to compare that.
Well,
I think Matt Stafford, if people look at fantasy, was one of the greatest fantasy quarterbacks of the last few years. His numbers are out of sight, and just like with Barry Sanders, just like with Megatron, and just like with Matt Stafford. I don't know what it is with Detroit, but that's a place to go where you can be good and retire early with nothing. So we're going to take our official time out, our second and last one, folks. We'll be back on the other side talking about the playoff picture as it is today, and we'll also be there with This Day in Sports, one of our favorite segments where we talk about a little bit about the past and what happened and birthdays and stuff like that. So please stay with us, join us, and we'll be right back on the other side.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed. Yeah, well, Kyle's not here. How come? Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
That is my the intro into the show, Jack. So anyway, we here at Mac and Jack Sports Show, an announcement again. We are on the Northeast streaming sports, a new sports network that we're on, and we're glad to be on it. And it just started up today, as a matter of fact, Jack, where we're here. We're glad to be part of it. We're a bunch of us broadcasts and sportscasters and podcasters get together and have one place where everybody can go and listen to their favorite shows. So we're glad to be on it. We want to thank the people that have contributed comments today. It's great having new people aboard. And one quick thing, Jack, I want to do before we push on. I want to talk about the Best Wishes Foundation with Byron Williams. It's a worthwhile core cause where he's a former Giants and Eagles receiver out there in Texas. He runs this foundation for underprivileged kids. There's no government involved in this, so there's no money be given to the government. He takes the funds you give him, and he goes and buys stuff and brings it right to the kids, so there's no fraud. It's something that I hope you all support. His PayPal account is on Max Sports, so check it out. And $5, $10, whatever you can afford to give. We do still have our auction of team cards where we are auctioning off for that cause. And, the minimum bid on that is $50. We have the Giants, the Eagles, the Patriots, and a bunch of other teams, the New York Yankees greatest pitchers of the 90s. Check it out. Again, that's on Max Sports Facebook page. Make a bid on it. $50 minimum. We have a few bids right now. It's going to the highest bidder. So, Jack, let's get to the playoff picture. We have the Chiefs in the AFC. The Chiefs are number 1 seed. Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills each won their division. If the season ended today, Jack, the Titans win the division. Miami, Baltimore, and Cleveland are in, meaning the Colts would be out. Isn't that crazy?
Well, Colts need a little help, but as long as the Colts take care of business this weekend, they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. It
Right.
should be an easy game for them. They're playing them at home. They should get help somewhere. It's hard to believe one of the other teams isn't going to lose. So I think one way or the other, the Colts are going to get in the playoffs. I didn't like the way Tennessee looked against Green Bay last Sunday night. I mean, I understand the conditions in Green Bay were very difficult. It was snowing. It was cold. You don't want to play in those conditions. But I mean, Green Bay picked the Titans apart, and I know Green Bay is used to practicing in those conditions.
Sure.
That's why it's such an advantage for them to have the games at Green Bay. But the way the Titans look, they've lost their way at various points during the year, and I've always felt you stop Derrick Henry, you're going to stop the Titans. I mean, Ryan Tannehill hasn't shown me he could take over a game, minus running attack.
And not only that, Jack, their defense has fallen off unbelievably.
Yeah.
I mean, last year they had one of the best defenses. This year they can't rush the passer, they can't cover the receivers, and they were run on very well by Green Bay last week. So their running defense is suffering right now. I mean, I don't know what happened to the Titans over the year from last year, but they definitely aren't playing as well as they did last year.
No, I'm going to tell you, they're playing the Houston Texans. And you mentioned J.J. Watt a little while ago. He called out his team. He's disgusted with them, so on. They're 4-11, the Texans. But I got to feel that they're going to show up for this game at home. And I got to feel Deshaun Watson is a character guy until he shows me otherwise. I know some of his teammates went to the restaurant. I'm not going to condemn him for one incident. Just don't let it happen again. Be a little more careful. He hasn't had a track record of irresponsibility. I got to believe the Texans show up for this game because it's the last game of the year. I kind of have to believe they're going to want to go out on a high note. And Tennessee's going to be in for a tough game at Houston this Sunday.
I agree. And Friday, guess who my underdog pick is, Jack? So, in the NFC, of course, Green Bay right now, I think if they win, they get the first seed. New Orleans, I think, is fighting for it still. Both of those have won the division. Seattle has clinched their division. The Bucs are in the playoffs, Jack, so we'll see how they perform. So in the NFC least, Jack, we have Washington winning, they're in. If they don't win, it's up for grabs with Dallas and the Giants. The Rams win and they're in. Chicago wins and they're in. So on the bubble right now, we have the Cardinals, the Cowboys, and the Giants, Jack.
Well, Cardinals are playing at the Rams, so any chance of them getting in? If the Cardinals win, they're 9-7 on the year. It's a successful season. But if they lose and they end up at 8-8, you're going to kind of wonder. They were 6-3 at one point, so
Right.
they would have finished the rest of the season going 2-5 if they should lose to the Rams, and that would be really disappointing. And you'd have to wonder, have they really made substantial progress under Cliff Kingsbury, their coach?
You know, Jack, again, I'll bring this up. I brought it up on other shows. Kyler Murray has a great arm when he's healthy. He's one of the most dynamic quarterbacks as far as running with the ball. But his stature is small, and he's really light. And it looks like this is starting to wear on him this year because he's getting some big hits. He hurt his shoulder, hurt his leg. They've got to find a way to tell Kyler Murray, stop trying to run for a touchdown, get down, slide, get out of bounds, whatever you got to do. Stop trying to run for 80 yards and get that touchdown. It's exciting, but in the end, this may put him out of the NFL.
Well, that's why I sometimes like the idea if you could get two top of the line quarterbacks and rotate them in times, because this allows one of them to run more. He doesn't have to be in. And I'm going to tell you, you're living in a new era, a new NFL. I mean, you take Lamar Jackson, for example, the Baltimore Raven quarterback. That's like having Eric Dickerson quarterbacking your team. Imagine Eric Dickerson can throw 20-yard passes effectively, maybe not 40-yard passes, but 20-yard passes effectively, and you have him back there getting the ball out of the shotgun. You have this enormous weapon. It's like you have this great running back quarterbacking your team. So I think we're living in a new era with the NFL, with the days of, keep the guy in the pocket, don't let him run around, keep him healthy. I mean, the running quarterback is such a great weapon. You're right about Kyler Murray. You have to know when to slide down at the right time. Because one of the things these quarterbacks have going for them, the NFL rules protect the quarterbacks these days, unlike years ago.
Yeah, use it. But Jack, until a team with a running quarterback, we're not talking about Patrick Mahomes, scrambling. We're not talking about, some of the quarterbacks that can scramble and run with the ball like Wilson. Until a running quarterback wins a Super Bowl and Tom Brady and Drew Brees, their pocket quarterbacks, they are still, and Aaron Rodgers are still the class of the league. And until I see Jackson or Murray or Cam, which Cam will never smell a Super Bowl now, I don't think. Until one of those win the Super Bowl, I'm still saying that the pocket quarterback, maybe scrambling when he's in trouble, is still where the NFL is at.
Well, you could argue Aaron Rodgers is the last of the great pocket quarterbacks, but it's all about instincts too.
I agree.
You could stay in the pocket as long as you have the instincts to get rid of the ball. I mean, and these quarterbacks under such pressure, they have to make a split-second decision. The brain has to process what they're going to do at that moment. And Aaron Rodgers has great instincts as far as getting rid of the ball. The type of instincts that most other quarterbacks don't have.
Agree with you. So, Jack, let's touch on this day in sports history. I mean, the show is almost over, but we do have a few. And let's talk about the first two I have here. In 1962, the Green Bay Packers beat the Giants 16-7. Linebacker then was Ray Nitschke. And what was interesting to me when Vince Lombardi went over the Green Bay Packers, of course, he was the offensive coordinator for the Giants. He did a lot of things that were similar that the Giants.
In 1961, you're saying?
No, 1962, they won the championship.
16, okay.
1962. When Vince Lombardi went over to the Packers, he did a lot of things that the Giants were doing. First, we had the great Sam Huff, who played in the 4-3. Well, Ray Nitschke was the middle linebacker playing in the 4-3. They had an offensive system that mirrored, having Frank Gifford with Paul Hornung, who was an option running back that could throw the ball. So, I mean, to me, Lombardi, you could easily argue the greatest coach in NFL history. But he took a lot of things he learned from Tom Landry, being a defensive coordinator at that time, and what the Giants were doing well during the 50s and brought him to Green Bay. And Ray Nitschke is not mentioned as much. He's mentioned, but not as much as Dick Butkus, as Sam Huff, as Harry Carson, as some of the other great middle linebackers. But he was a great middle linebacker, Jeff.
When you think of that Giants staff to have Lombardi and Landry as your coordinators, I mean, that's off the charts. Those are the glory days for the Giants. I mean, they won the NFL championship in 1956, and then they lost to the Colts 2 years in a row in 58, 59. And then they went to the championship game in 61, 62, and 63 and lost all those years. And you think of the NFL, the balance of power at the time. But Lombardi, I mean, a legendary coach. I mean, the players he assembled on the Packers, we remember them clearly. And Green Bay was a losing team. But one thing about Lombardi very quickly, when he went over to the Washington Redskins and coached the 1 year before his untimely death, they hadn't had a winning season in 14 years. And even though their record was only 7-5-2, the idea he could take them from a negative column for 14 years in a row and move them over to the positive column, a winning record, said a lot about what a great coach he was.
I agree, Jack, and guess what? That 2 hours went by too fast. So, thank you for joining us today on the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. Thank you for our guest, Philly Sports Guy. And tomorrow, Jack, we got our boxing expert, John Scully, who joins us every week, and Carter B. with our NHL coverage. Guys, thanks for joining us. Come back tomorrow. Have a great day. And, Jack, we'll see you tomorrow.